And I feel much better about not having prepared for this speech as well as I might have after Russ's speech about improvisation. So, have you ever thought that there are people walking around the world today who might still be alive 1,000 years from now in the year 3012?
Keith Richards.
I've been thinking about this a lot. I'd like to be one of these people, frankly.
Ted Williams. No.
And because I've been thinking about it and reading about it, I'd like to share with you in today's speech 2 observations, scientific observations, that I think may make this possible, 3 technologies that I think may also make this possible, and 4 tips, 4 things that you can do to try to be one of the lucky ones that's still around 1,000 years from now. So the first observation. Let's think about how what we think of as old age works. I mean, what happens? The hair turns gray, your skin starts to get loose and wrinkly, maybe your hearing and your eyesight start to go, and eventually your memory and your cognition fail, and you die. Well, that's not old age. That's what scientists call senescence. Oh, big word, yeah. Senescence. But consider the lobster and the giant tortoise. When these animals get older, they get stronger, they get bigger, they get more fertile. And as far as scientists know, they don't ever die of old age. That's called negligible senescence. And it's not how we are, but we know it's possible. So this gives me some hope. The other thing that gives me some hope is the rate of technological change is accelerating. Okay? Just in our lifetimes, we haven't just seen great technological change, but we have seen acceleration in the pace of technological change. It's historically been true that people thought that the way things are now is the way that they're going to be. But it's also been historically true that this has never been the case. That things are dramatically different in the future than we think they're going to be. So this gives me some hope. So those are my 2 observations. Here are the 3 technologies that I think may get us to where I want to be, which is alive in the year 3012. Number 1, DNA sequencing. It hasn't been that long since we first sequenced the human genome. But what does it cost now if you want to get your human genome sequenced? A few $100, send it off in the mail, you'll get it back in a couple of weeks. Things are moving along very, very quickly when it comes to the human genome. And so this gives me some optimism. I have a 6-year-old daughter. She just lost her first tooth, right? And we know that another tooth is going to grow back. Why does this happen? Well, it's DNA. We don't understand what really happens in the DNA that makes the one tooth grow back but not the third. But I think that with DNA sequencing, with gene therapy, and technologies that are going to come along in the future, that it may be possible not just to bring in your third tooth, but to decelerate aging and to allow us to regrow organs and all sorts of things that we can't do now. So that's number 1, DNA sequencing. Number 2, probably near and dear to the hearts of many of the people in this room, is computer technology. If we've seen acceleration in technology in our lifetimes, I'm sure the biggest acceleration has been in computer technology. And nobody sees an end in sight to this acceleration. So how can this help us live longer? Well, think about modeling what happens in our bodies at a cellular and even at the atomic level. If we could run a model of our complete body and see if you change this, what happens there? Well, shoot, the problem's solved, right? We could figure out how to do whatever we want with our bodies. That's a pretty amazing thing. And of course we can't do it with today's computer technology, but the computer technology of 20 years, 30 years from now, think about what that's going to be able to do. It's not such a long shot, is it? The third technology, I almost hate to say this because it's a little pessimistic, but I was watching a TED Talk last year where a scientist was researching how people who are like trapped under the ice for half an hour, can be revived and live healthy lives after the fact. This is a process that is all of a sudden much better understood than it ever has been. These scientists are actually looking at ways to create this set of circumstances that allows people to survive in this sort of cryostasis, like Han Solo, right?
Carbon.
And they're using this for trauma victims and for surgeries where people couldn't otherwise survive. This is happening. So if 30 minutes, why not 30 hours, 30 days, or 30 years? And if the technology doesn't catch up in time for any of our untimely demise, maybe this is going to allow us to make it to the point where the technology catches up and we can be revived and live, for the next 900 years. So that gives me some hope too. So those are my 3 technologies. The 4 tips. I see the green light is on. Number 1, this is pretty intuitive. Try to live as long as you can. Eat right, exercise. Yeah. Avoid cigarettes, motorcycles, and of course, crystal meth. Number 2,
Why live?
maybe easier. I know. That ain't living, right? Number 2, easier said than done. Save your money. These therapies are bound to be very expensive, and insurance may or may not cover them. This is one case where having a couple $1 million in the bank may literally make the difference between life and death.
The 1%.
Yeah, you want to be in the 1% in 50 years. Number 3, there is a company in California called Alcor that if you take out a life insurance policy and name them as the beneficiary, will put plans in place to freeze your body in the event of your untimely demise. They exist right now. You can do it.
Just ahead.
I'm not saying you should, but you might think about it. And number 4, and this is really the point of this speech, is spread the word. I mean, how many of us even think that this is a possibility right now? Not very many. And so this idea hasn't reached the critical mass that it will have to for us to make the major investment in primary scientific research that's going to be necessary to make it happen. And it's going to happen. But is it going to happen on the time frame that we want it to? That's the big question, right? And we've all got a lot at stake here. Everything, when you think about it. So let me leave you with a statistic that I looked up on the internet, so it must be true. Every day, about 150,000 people die. Every day. What are we doing about that? Not enough, is what I think. So thank you for your time.